What if I told you the biggest song of 1979 was written by a man who had never once tasted the drink he named it after? He was not a rock star. He was not a teen idol. He was not the kind of face that sells magazines or fills arenas. He was something rarer and harder to explain. A writer who understood melody the way a surgeon understands anatomy, precise, systematic, quietly lethal. He had been in the music business for over a decade before anyone knew his name. And when they finally learned it, they learned the wrong thing about him. The Pina Colada song was everywhere. Number one.
And she said, "Oh, it's you." Then we laughed for a moment.
End of a decade. The kind of hit that embeds itself so deep into the culture that people stop hearing it as a song and start hearing it as wallpaper. And that is exactly what the industry wanted. Wallpaper does not ask for anything. Wallpaper does not have a second act. They were wrong about that. If you haven't done so, like and subscribe. Here is how Rupert Holmes escaped the only trap in the music business that nobody warns you about. To understand what happened to Rupert Holmes, you have to understand what he was before the song. He was born David Goldstein in Northwich, Cheshire, England in 1947. His father was a United States Army warrant officer and band leader. His mother was English. The family moved to the northern suburbs of New York City when he was 6 years old. He grew up in Nanuet, New York, attended Nyack High School, and then enrolled at the Manhattan School of Music, studying clarinet and then music theory. He graduated understanding how songs are built from the inside out. Not just how to perform them, how to construct them, arrange them, and produce them. By the late 1960s, he was working the New York studio circuit. He appeared on sessions with the Drifters, Gene Pitney, Tom Rush, the Platters, and Andy Kim. He became a member of the Cuff Links, the bubblegum studio project that scored a 1969 hit with Tracy. He appeared on something like 300 singles during that period, not as a star, as the professional in the room that everyone trusted to make the record work. He was also writing, and the writing was something else entirely. In 1971, a band called The Boys took a Holmes composition called Timothy.
Timothy, where on earth did you go?
Into the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100. The song was about miners trapped underground and, depending on who you asked, implied something far darker by the final verse. Radio programmers across the country tried to ban it. It charted anyway. That was Rupert Holmes at 23 years old, already writing songs that made people stop cold. His first solo album, Widescreen, followed in 1974. Critics noticed. Nobody bought it.
Sound as if they're written.
His label manufactured 10,000 copies and called it a day. But one of those copies found its way to Barbra Streisand, and that changed everything. Not because it made him famous, but because it kept him in the game. Streisand wanted Holmes to write for her, arrange for her, produce for her. He worked on 6 of her albums. He contributed to the soundtrack of the 1976 film A Star is Born, which won the Academy Award for Best Original Score. While the world did not know his name, the people who mattered inside the industry knew exactly who he was and exactly what he could do. 3 more solo albums followed. Rupert Holmes in 1975, singles in Pursuit of Happiness in the years after, each one a critic's favorite.
You quit, I'm caught in a fog. Can't you make it? Show me why. And if I'm a fool,
Each one a commercial disappointment. Pursuit of Happiness suffered a particularly brutal piece of bad luck. His label, Private Stock Records, went out of business while the album was still on the shelves. The record went out of print before it had a chance. Holmes had now watched one label die underneath him. He picked himself up, found a new deal, and went back to work. You probably heard his music during this period without knowing it. Streisand was everywhere in the late 1970s. Dolly Parton recorded his songs. Barry Manilow recorded his songs. Dionne Warwick recorded his songs. The voice delivering the melody changed depending on who was on the album cover. The person who wrote the melody stayed invisible. That was the life Rupert Holmes had built. Respected, prolific, invisible. And then came Partners in Crime. But here is the turn. Partners in Crime was Holmes' 5th solo album.
she's into power, he's into pain, and beneath her heel,
released in August of 1979 on a label called Infinity Records. And right away, there was a problem. Infinity Records was not a healthy company. It had made a catastrophic bet on a European artist whose debut album cost over $1 million to record and promote, and stalled at number 126 on the Billboard chart. The label was hemorrhaging money, the infrastructure was crumbling, and Rupert Holmes was about to release the most important record of his life into the middle of that collapse. The lead single was a song called Escape. He had written it almost by accident.
While she lay there sleeping, I read the paper in bed.
The album needed one more track. He was working on a tight budget, pulled a groove from an older recording he had lying around, and tried to write something over it. Nothing clicked for a long time. Then one evening, he was flipping through the classified ads in the Village Voice. The kind of thing people did before the internet made loneliness more efficient. And the idea arrived fully formed. A man bored with his relationship, secretly answering a personal ad, arranging to meet a stranger, only to discover the stranger is his own partner, who placed the ad for exactly the same reason. He had one more decision to make before recording it. The chorus originally opened with the line, "If you like Humphrey Bogart and getting caught in the rain." Standing at the microphone, about to record, he changed his mind. He had referenced old movies too many times on his earlier albums. He needed something different, something that felt like escape, like vacation, like a drink in a hollowed-out pineapple with a paper umbrella and a long straw. He chose pina colada. Rupert Holmes had never tasted a pina colada in his life. He said so publicly, repeatedly, for decades afterward. But the word fit the music, fit the feeling, fit the image of two people who wanted out of their ordinary lives. He recorded the vocal in a single take. The song was done. Infinity Records released it as a single on October 20th, 1979. And here is what nobody tells you about what happened next. While Escape, the Pina Colada song, was climbing the charts, while radio stations were adding it to their playlists and listeners were calling in to request the Pina Colada song by that guy, what's his name? Infinity Records was dying. The label that was supposed to be launching Holmes into stardom was going under in real time, right alongside his biggest hit. MCA Records stepped in. They were distributing Infinity's catalog, and they recognized what they had. They kept the promotional machine running. They kept the single alive. And on December 22nd, 1979, Escape, the Pina Colada song, hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became the final number 1 of the entire decade. It was knocked off the top spot briefly by KC and the Sunshine Band, then climbed back. It became the first pop single to reach number 1 in 2 different decades. The song that Holmes wrote out of necessity, on a budget, with a lyric he changed at the last possible second, had just made history. And Infinity Records was bankrupt. The album kept producing. Him, the follow-up single, reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1980. That is 2 top 10 hits from the same record. Answering Machine followed and reached the top 40. Partners in Crime went gold in the United States. By any reasonable measure, Rupert Holmes was not a one-hit wonder. He was an established solo artist with a proven commercial track record and a songwriting reputation that stretched back a decade. The industry did not see it that way. By the time Him was released, Infinity Records was fully absorbed into MCA. The label infrastructure that had been built around Holmes was gone. The people who had signed him, believed in him, and understood what he was making no longer had jobs. MCA was a large company with a large roster, and no particular investment in figuring out what to do with a witty, literate, story-driven songwriter who did not fit neatly into any format radio programmers were buying in 1980. The momentum from Partners in Crime was real, but momentum without institutional support is just a ball rolling toward a wall. You probably heard Escape 100 times in the years that followed. You probably sang along without thinking about it. You heard
In the dunes on the Cape, when you're the love.
You heard it on the radio, driving somewhere you only half remember. You heard it in a restaurant, in a movie, in a television show set in that era. The song embedded itself into the collective memory of anyone who was alive and listening in 1979 and 1980. It became one of those songs that simply exists, the way certain songs do, permanently attached to a feeling rather than to a person. But here is the kicker. The song that made Rupert Holmes famous also made him a punchline. Not immediately, gradually. As the 1980s wore on and the music shifted, as synthesizers replaced session musicians and MTV replaced radio as the gatekeeper of stardom, escape began to calcify into something slightly ridiculous. The tropical lightness of it, the pina colada, the personal ad, the twist ending that resolved a little too neatly. Critics who had never given Holmes a moment's serious attention started using the song as shorthand for the excesses of soft pop. It became easy to mock, and the easier it became to mock, the further Rupert Holmes, the artist receded behind Rupert Holmes, the guy who sang the Pina Colada song. He said it himself, years later, with the dry humor of a man who had made peace with something he could not change. If he had saved an entire orphanage from a burning building, he said, and stood there charred and smoking with the last child on his shoulders, someone in the crowd would ask, "Aren't you the guy who wrote the Pina Colada song?" The follow-up albums went nowhere. The commercial window that Partners in Crime had opened closed quickly and quietly. By the mid-1980s, Rupert Holmes no longer had a recording career in any meaningful sense. The same industry that had propped him up through 2 label collapses had finally stopped catching him. And then something happened that the music business could not have predicted and did not deserve to witness. In 1985, Joseph Pop and the New York Shakespeare Festival produced a new musical in Central Park at the Delacorte Theater. The show was based on Charles Dickens's final and unfinished novel. Nobody knew how to end the story because Dickens had died before finishing it. Rupert Holmes, the man the pop charts had discarded, solved that problem with an idea so elegant it should have been obvious to everyone, and somehow was not. He let the audience decide. Every night, the crowd voted on who the murderer was, which characters ended up together, how the story resolved. Every performance was different. Every audience became part of the show. He wrote the book. He wrote the music. He wrote the lyrics. He wrote the orchestrations. All of it, alone. That last part was almost unheard of in Broadway history. Composing, writing, and orchestrating a full musical is not a one-person job. It had simply never occurred to Rupert Holmes that it was supposed to require more than one person, because he had always done everything himself. The Mystery of Edwin Drood transferred to Broadway at the Imperial Theater on December 2nd, 1985. It ran for 608 performances. It was nominated for 11 Tony Awards. It won 5. Holmes personally won for Best Book of a Musical and Best Original Score. The production won Best Musical. He stood on a Broadway stage and accepted awards for work that had nothing to do with a tropical cocktail and everything to do with the craftsman he had always been underneath the pop surface. The same year, The Mystery of Edwin Drood opened on Broadway. Escape, the Pina Colada song, was still playing on radio stations across America.
I'm not much into health food. I am into champagne.
2 versions of the same man existing simultaneously. One, a nostalgic artifact from a decade that had ended. The other, a Tony Award-winning theatrical force that the pop world had no framework to process. And just like that, Rupert Holmes was gone from music, and larger than he had ever been. He kept building. Say Goodnight, Gracie, his play about George Burns, earned him a Tony nomination for Best Play. Curtains, a musical written with the legendary songwriting team of Kander and Ebb, won him the Drama Desk Award for Best Book and 2 further Tony nominations. He wrote novels that earned him the Edgar Award from the Mystery Writers of America, twice. He created and wrote 50 episodes of a television dramedy called Remember WENN for AMC. He collaborated with Marvin Hamlish. He contributed to a Steven Soderbergh film. He adapted Gilbert and Sullivan for a new Broadway production. All of it invisible to the audience that remembered him only for pina coladas. Here is what you should take away from all of this. Rupert Holmes was never what the industry decided he was. He was not a novelty act. He He was not a soft pop curiosity who got lucky once with a catchy hook about a tropical drink. He was a craftsman who had been building his entire life towards something. And when the pop chart stopped being the right place to build it, he found somewhere else and kept going. The song is still out there. It is playing right now, somewhere, attached to a feeling of warmth and escape and a simpler time. And the man who wrote it almost by accident, on a tight budget, changing the lyric at the last possible second while standing at the microphone, went on to win more awards in more disciplines than almost anyone in American entertainment history. Novelist, playwright, composer, lyricist, orchestrator, television writer. The pop world called him a one-hit wonder and walked away. Broadway called him a genius and handed him its highest honors. Both things happened to the same man. That is the story of Rupert Holmes, not a cautionary tale, not a tragedy. Something rarer than either of those. A quiet, complete, unhurried vindication, earned in a room the radio could not reach. Next time Escape comes on, and it will come on, it always comes on. Raise whatever you are drinking, even if it is not a pina colada, especially if it is not a pina colada, because Rupert Holmes never had one either, and he turned that into the last number one of the 1970s. Hit like and subscribe, and to my subscribers, you already know, you rock.